Hey there, my friend. This is Paul Hutchings with paulhutchings.net, and you're watching this video right now because you're looking for some information on a very fascinating book called The Great Message by JE Richardson. And JE stands for John E. Richardson. This was a book that I stumbled upon about a year or so ago that's really captured my imagination and helped me to really work through some really interesting ideas. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to just walk you through some of the main ideas in this book so that you can hopefully get an idea or a sense or a feel for whether or not this is a book that maybe you want to delve a little bit more into. So first off, though, before I get too far into the content of this video, I do want to let you know that right below this video, I have a free gift for you. If you're watching this video, I believe that means you're a seeker, you're a philosopher, you're someone who seeks out great information. And so right below this video, I've compiled a book. It's called The Little Book of Wisdom, and it's a 38-page document that has some of the best quotes that I've been able to come across in my studies over the last few years. And I wanted to just let you know that that's right below this video for you. If you want to download that, I think you can get some great value from it. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into The Great Message by JE Richardson. So first off, how did I find this book? Well, I've been a student of Dr. Napoleon Hill for a number of years. There was a point in my journey where I was having a lot of failure, and I found the works of Dr. Napoleon Hill, and everything turned around. I started having more success. And so I became a very committed student of his works. And his last book that he wrote was written in his 80s. It's called Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. And I was reading this book one day, and I'd read almost all the way through the book, and I was getting to the end, and there was a chapter in that book that really made me just like sit back on my seat. I remember coming to this part and I was like, what in the heck, right? And at this part of the book, Napoleon Hill talks about being visited by a master, right? This master, this entity, this person who had become so advanced as far as like spiritually that they had acquired wisdom and power, and this master visited Napoleon Hill. And so Napoleon Hill in this particular chapter of Grow Rich with Peace of Mind talks a little bit about the masters and talks about the message that was delivered to him from the master. And that's a great book, by the way. If you haven't read that book, I would recommend Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. It's a really great book. But anyway, in this particular description of this visit that Napoleon Hill received, he quotes JE Richardson and The Great Message, just kind of passively. He mentions a little bit from this book. And so as a seeker, as a philosopher, I sought out this book on the internet, maybe like you're doing right now. And I discovered that JE Richardson was a man who also, I think it was towards the latter part of the 19th century, I think it was the very end of the 19th century, supposedly had a visit from a master, right? And this master came from the ancient school of wisdom that was over in India. And this master told J.E. Richardson that he had a message for J.E. Richardson to deliver to the people of the world, and specifically here in North America, or this half of the hemisphere. And so The Great Message is one of a series of books that J.E. Richardson ended up publishing. The entire series is called the Harmonic Series. And I'll actually post a link to The Great Message right below this video. If you're looking for that book, I'll post a link right down below so you can get access to that. And you can get access to the entire Harmonic Series on the internet. There's actually an organization right now called the Great School of Natural Science. If you look that up on Google, you'll find their website, and they have all of the books, the Harmonic Series, and then also a whole bunch of other documents that were produced right around that time frame and from this specific line of thought. So long story short, what is the Great Message? So what I want to do, though, actually, before I get into the Great Message specifically, is just kind of give you the thrust or the main points of the Harmonic Series. And this stuff is just so fascinating. Like this information has really just captivated my imagination and caused me to think and wonder and just be like, wow, this is really interesting, right? So the main thrust of the Harmonics series, which is authored by J.E. Richardson and then also a lady named Florence Huntley wrote the first book. Here's kind of the main point, is that there is a scientific ethical formulary that exists that, when followed, spiritual progression and spiritual unfoldment is sort of like a natural conclusion. It's a natural result. And so the idea is that God, or the creator, built into the fabric of reality this ethical these ethical laws, and that at any point in time, the soul of man and woman is right in the center of the universe, so to speak, in this vortex of natural moral law, and that when we comply or harmonize ourselves with this moral law, we begin to unfold spiritually, right? And so that's sort of like a part of the main thrust. And then the other part of the message of this entire Harmonic series is that throughout history, ancient history, there have been very wise men and women who have sought out answers to the great questions of life, such as, is there life after death? And also, is there purpose for our existence? And they have discovered how to put themselves in harmony with these ethical, moral laws. And as such, they have advanced to such point where they have gained in an enlightenment and spiritual power, right? And then also, JE Richardson asserts that at some point in history, they gained telepathic powers, which they say is one of the basic, one of the most basic spiritual powers that you can develop, as you unfold. And so when they developed these telepathic powers, it was a natural result for these masters to communicate telepathically with one another and then decide that they were going to associate and form an association, and hence the Great School of the Masters. And these books say that this Great School of the Masters has existed throughout the ancient world. And in this book, The Great Message, is sort of a history, right? Sort of a history. And in this book, the assertion is made that civilization has been around for not just tens, but hundreds of thousands of years. And these masters have been around for all of this time. And all the while, they've been endeavoring to uplift humanity and lead them to light and life and truth and wisdom and spiritual unfoldment. So that's sort of the thrust behind the message of the Harmonic series. So The Great Message specifically is one of the books of the Harmonic series. And it's sort of a history, like I said earlier. It's a history of this great message, right? And so some of the things that this book talks about, in fact, if you open it up right at the beginning of the book, it says the great message is the lineal key to the relationships between all past religious and philosophic world movements and the Great School of the Masters. And then assertion number 2, the Great School of the Masters was or is back of or in sympathy with every great humanitarian movement known to history. And then number 3, the Great School of the Masters throughout all recorded ages has been and still is a physical association of men who have attained mastership, right? So that's like the big assertion at the beginning of the book. And then right as you start reading the book, there's a couple other assertions that are made in this book. And one of the assertions is that there are 2 great forces in the universe. There is a constructive force, and then there is a destructive force. And that when you align yourself with the constructive force, you begin to unfold and develop and progress. Whereas if you align yourself with the destructive force, the opposite happens, right? And then it also talks about how when you understand this principle, you can quickly see how any great movement has been aligned with A, either the constructive force, or B, the destructive force in nature. And what this book asserts is that the Great School of the Masters has been behind every great constructive movement all throughout humanity. And as you go through the book, the assertion is made that the Great School of the Masters were behind Christianity. The Great School of the Masters were behind some parts of Masonry. The Great School of the Masters were behind some parts of Brahmanism and Buddhism. And so that's sort of the thrust of this book. And you can read about it, and it's really, really fascinating, right? So that's really what this book is about. The great message. There is a great message, and that's what this book is detailing. So all of that being said, I think with any great book, there are 2 questions to ask. Number 1, is it true? And number 2, is it useful, right? So in answer to the first question, is it true? I want to share with you a quote that comes at the beginning of every single one of these books in the Harmonic series that I think is great. And the quote says, "Fools deride, philosophers investigate," right? And so I'm not going to give my opinion on whether this stuff is true or not, but what I would encourage you to do is, if you're a philosopher, maybe it's worthy of investigating this stuff to see if maybe some of this stuff might be true. And the second point, is it useful? I will give you my thoughts on that. I have found this information to be very useful. Whether it's all true or not, I have found a lot of inspiration in the thought that there is ethical law and that there is a way to put ourselves in harmony with that ethical and moral law. I personally believe in principles. I personally believe in truth. I personally believe that we are here on this planet for a reason. And so I did draw a lot of inspiration from this book. And JE Richardson, whether or not he authored these himself, he says that, it would be a mistake to say that he was the author. Whoever authored it, whether it was him from his own mind, or maybe he had some influence and, that came to him through his pen, this information does have some very inspiring lines of thought that, again, regardless of, whether or not every single little part is true or not, there is some inspiration here to be had. And I'll just close out with maybe one of the most inspiring ideas that came from my study of these books and the Great Message. They give a definition of truth, and as a philosopher, we're always looking for what is truth? And we've got this sense that we got to find truth, but there's a lot of different definitions as to what truth is, right? Mortimer Adler said, if it is, it is. If it isn't, it isn't. He says truth is easy to define, right? And different definitions. Well, there was a unique definition given by JE Richardson in the Harmonic Series, and that is this. He said, truth is the established harmonic relation between the facts of nature and the soul. And I thought that was, if nothing else, just a really inspiring way to look at truth. The established harmonic relation between the facts of nature. So the reality that we exist in, the creation, maybe there really are laws written in the fabric of our reality. And when we harmonize our spirits with those laws, with those moral laws, we are in essence tapping into truth. So those are my thoughts on this book, The Great Message, JE Richardson. Again, I'll include a download link to this book below if you'd like to read it. And also, just remind you that if you are a philosopher, if you are a seeker of truth, if you are a lover of wisdom, you really might get some great value from my little book of wisdom that I've put together, which are just the best quotes that I've been able to come across in my personal development journey. You can download that right below this video, and you can also subscribe to my email list through that process where you and I can have an opportunity to stay in touch with one another. So, thanks for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts. Have you run across these books? Have you read them? What has been your experience with them? I would love to hear. Like and comment down below. And thanks for watching this video. Whatever you do, my friend, always go for your dreams. Take care and bye for now.